Hi guys, welcome. Welcome everyone. All right guys, I'm gonna give all of you a couple minutes to join just to make sure we're not missing anyone, and then we're gonna start. In the meantime, just make sure you have all your supplies, and I'll tell you in a second the exact list of supplies, but it's just, I would say, the usual, just the usual, nothing special. All right guys, we'll wait like 2 minutes and then we'll start. Oh, hi guys. Hi, welcome. All right, in the meantime, let me open my canvas. I'm gonna be using 12 by 16 inch today. All right, it's almost time, guys. Yes, if you joining us for the first time, the video is going to stay right here. It's going to be available anytime. If you can't do it today, it's not a problem at all. You can do it anytime after. It's going to be right here. Hi. So many familiar faces and names. All right, guys, I think it's time for us to start. So welcome, everyone. If we haven't met before, my name is Vera. I'll be your instructor for today. And this is what we're painting. It is super, super fun and pretty. So that's what we're going to do. And yeah, this painting was originally made by our artist friend, Dean Sherman. He is really cool and he gave us permission to teach this because we loved it so much and we knew you guys are going to love it as well. So before we start, let's quickly go through supplies, make sure we have all that we need. I will be using smaller canvas today. I'm going to be using 12 by 16 inch canvas, but of course you can go bigger, you can go smaller, totally up to you. There's no particular size that you have to use. Just make sure you adjust the size of your brushes based on the size of your canvas. So if you go bigger than mine, let's say you want to go with 16 by 20, maybe go with slightly bigger brushes. And if you want to go smaller, maybe go with slightly smaller brushes. So that's that, and we're going to need, ideally, if you have a pencil, that would be good because we're going to start by sketching umbrella here. If not, not a big deal. You can just sketch with light gray paint. That will work as well, but pencil is always best. You're going to need water, of course. You're going to need a paper towel. Again, for this actually very important because I'm going to be blending my 2 colors of sand with a paper towel. You can do this without paper towel, not a big deal. You can do this with a brush. So if you don't have paper towel, that's okay. But I will be doing this with a paper towel. We're going to need a palette, of course, something to mix our paint on. That's very important. And we're going to need brushes and paint. As for brushes, I will be using only 2 brushes today. I'm going to be using small brush, the small detailed brush, and I'm going to be using medium brush. However, if you guys go with a bigger size canvas, you can use 3 brushes. You can use large, medium, and small. For my size of canvas, I definitely don't need large brush. So just medium and small is more than enough for me. In my case, my medium brush, I actually have quite a few of them, but all of them are square. So I'm going to be using square brush. But again, for this painting, it doesn't matter at all. Square, pointy, any other shape, it will work just as well. What else? Paint. We're going to need paint. I'm using my standard set here. Primary colors, which is yellow, blue, red, plus black and white. So you're free to join me on that and use primaries as well, and we will mix them together, and I'll show you how to mix them. Or you can use pre-mixed colors. From pre-mixed colors, you're going to need 2 different shades of sand color, so like a beigey color, I would say. Lighter one and a darker one. If you just have one brown, that's okay too, because you can just mix brown with white and get this color and add more white and get that color. So that's okay. Brown will actually make it much easier for you if you have it. If you don't have it, not a big deal. We can mix it. There's brown here too. So again, brown, good to have, very important. That's actually the trickiest color everyone always struggles making. Not always, but a lot of the time. So if you have brown, always beneficial. If not, that's okay. It's going to be a learning moment on how to mix brown. For water, we're going to only use 3 colors, mostly 2 and 1 just a highlight color. So mostly it's going to be teal. We're going to start with a light teal color, something like that. Then we're going to move to slightly darker blue. So it's going to be like a medium blue, and we'll add a couple lines in that. And then once our waves are in there, we will add this color. Do you see this dark one? And that is blue, darker blue mixed with a tiny smidge of black to dim it up a little. So if you have that darker blue color that is a little bit dimmer as well, you can use that. If not, we'll mix it. White. Very important, you need white. You will need black as well because we have some grays here. We have some reds that will need to be mixed with black as well. So that's pretty much all that you need. Again, the hardest color here to mix is probably brown. Teal can be tricky, but it's doable. All of it is doable. What else? I think that's pretty much it. I don't think there's anything else that we need. What size of square brush? It really is up to you. My brush does not have a number. This is a numberless brush, but any size will work as long as it's appropriate for the size of your canvas. Yeah, good. Bright blue, bright red, bright yellow. That's perfect. Those are great primary colors. All right, guys, I just guided you through all your supplies. And if this is your first time joining us and you're not sure how this works, what you could do, if let's say you just joined us and you feel like, oh, I missed introduction, or I missed this, or I missed that, or I missed the breakdown, I missed the colors, you can actually rewind to the beginning of this video and watch from there. And at any point, if you feel like you need a little bit more time for every step, you can pause this video or again, rewind and rewatch and so on. And once this video is done and it's fully recorded, you're going to be able to do the same here. You're going to be able to stop it, you're going to be able to rewind it, rewatch it, and so on. The only difference right now, you can ask me all the questions that you have because I'm here live to answer them for you. So that's a fun part about it. All right. So what are we going to start with here? Let me give you a breakdown on all the steps. So we're going to start with umbrella. We're going to sketch our umbrella. We're going to grab our pencil. We will sketch our umbrella. Then we'll just roughly estimate where our wave is going to start. Again, with pencil, just like a little line for us to know. It's not going to be precise line. We're going to make new line, but just so we know how far to go with our sand. Once we have that, we're gonna move to our sand. Sand is first thing we're going to do, and we're gonna do it in 2 colors. We're gonna make this darker beige, and we're gonna make this lighter beige. So we're gonna apply dark beige all over this area. Then right away, we cannot wait. We have to do this all on wet. So these 2 colors have to be blended on wet. So we can't really take a lot of time. So as soon as we applied lots of this first beige, we're gonna start applying second beige, and we're gonna apply it higher up and then just blend it a little. And then we're gonna grab our paper towel and we're gonna blend them with a paper towel. And why I say just paper towel? Because it does create this beautiful texture that looks like a sand that's been washed by the water. So it just, only because of texture. You can do this with a brush too. You can blend it with a brush. You can dab it with a brush. You can rub it with a brush. There are many ways you can do this, but I personally love how paper towel looks here. So again, your choice, but it's best if you do it on a wet in either one of the cases of how you're gonna do it. So after we have that, we can move on to our water, and we're gonna start with teal. We'll add lots and lots of teal, create a wave, not 3 waves, just 1. And then right away, again, while it's wet, now we don't care if this is wet at this point or not. This is actually more ideal if it's more dry. But here, the second color, the darker blue, we have to add on wet as well. So teal and our medium to dark blue have to be done on wet. So we'll start adding waves. Do you see? There are lots of waves there. So we'll start adding those waves. This ones. Do you see like a medium blue? So they're slightly darker than our original color. After that, we're gonna let it all dry up for a little bit. And while that's drying, we're gonna move on to our umbrella. And we're gonna add the first layer of, do you see there's white going gradient onto gray? So we'll add that, white to gray, and the first layer of red. We're actually gonna add 2 layers there just to make it really bright. I know that red sometimes can be a little streaky or a little transparent if you just add 1 layer. And because of how bright it is, we'll definitely need 2 layers. So we'll start by just putting 1 layer of red. Then we'll move forward to some other areas here. We'll work on the other areas. Then we'll come back and add actually red gradient to red mixed with black. So that would be our second layer, not the first layer. And while that's drying, we're gonna move to brown. We'll make brown, or brown if you have pre-mixed. We'll add those 2 hearts here in brown, and we will add that line right underneath the wave in brown. After we have that, we're gonna move back to waves. And that's when we're gonna start adding the white. So we'll add all the whites. We'll start by just creating those 3 waves here, and then we'll, using brush strokes and dabs, we'll merge them into the body of water. And after that, we will add those small little waves right here. Do you see? Lots of them. Now, once we have that, while that's drying, we can move on to this and add second layer of red. And we can add a little bit of white around our hearts. And then the final touch on this is going to be this darker blue. Do you see the blue that kind of creates a dimension and a 3D effect? So that blue mixed with a touch of black is going to be our last step. We'll add it a little bit underneath the waves and we'll blend it. We will wash it off to the bottom right away to create this gradual, like a shadow, gradual shadow. And then we'll add those little spots here. Do you see? Those tiny ones. Those little dots to make it look more like a sea foam. And just a couple little lines underneath the white spots here and wherever really on a wave. And that is it. That would be all. Then we'll sign it and be done with it. Guys, another thing to keep in mind, we're all anxious to start soon, but all those things we need to know before we start because we need to know where we're going. Otherwise, we will make mistakes. So for us not to make mistakes, we need to be sure what comes when. Another thing to keep in mind, if you want to do your edges, it is best to do them right away because there is a bit of color mixing here. So it wouldn't be the easiest painting to do the edges later and color match them later. It is best if you do your edges right away. So if you want to have your edge, whenever you come to the edge of your canvas with certain color, just wrap that color around the edge of the canvas. That way it's going to look in the end like you wrapped your image around the canvas. It's not required. If you don't want to do that, that's okay. You can always do just black edges in the end or color match, but it would be the easiest if you want to do that. All right, that is it. Now grab your canvases. And I'm going to see if anyone has questions quickly. Yes, you can use those colors for sure. All right, and description is, there is a description in the video that you're correct. There is a description that indicates all the colors, definitely. All right, all the good questions. So grab your pencils if you have them. If not, no big deal. You can use light gray paint. You just mix some white with some black and you can use that. And we will start by sketching our umbrella. So do you see our umbrella? Oops, let me move it. Do you see our umbrella is in this corner here? So I'm gonna start by just putting like a circular line, pretending that there's a circle right here. All right, once we have that, we're gonna add a couple lines from this corner out. So I'm gonna start by putting middle line first, so right in the middle. And then I'm gonna divide each section in half as well. Hey, welcome. All right. So once we have that done, we're gonna switch from this line to more of a curved down line. So like this. And then we're gonna, oops, where's my eraser? Where are you? Oh, here it is. And then we're gonna erase those lines. And guys, if you're using paint, let's say, and you're not using pencil and you're like, oh, how I'm gonna erase it, just take white paint and cover those up with white paint. That's totally fine. Or just leave them. The sand color will cover them up properly, so no worries if you cannot erase them. That's totally fine. All right, so here is our umbrella. We have our umbrella. Now, we're gonna add just very approximately a line for wave. Now, you see, if my wave is here, my line needs to go a little bit higher where my wave is going to be. So I would say you can make your wave any shape that you would like. Ish, more or less. Just approximately. All right. Do we have it? Are we ready to move to painting, or do we need another minute? No worries, I'll give you another minute, no problem. Oh, yay, John. I love seeing thumbs up. All right, good. I see lots of thumbs ups, so that's perfect. Okay, so if we're ready, let's move to our colors. And we're going to start by making our sand color. So if you guys have pre-mixed brown, for you to grab it, put it on your palette, and you can just mix it with white. So put white and brown on your palette if you have them. If not, you're going to need all your primaries. So feel free to put all the primaries on a palette and we will mix our brown. So I have whichever. I would say try both, see which one gives you a better color. Which one do you prefer really? Because sand comes in all colors. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be mixing my sand color. I'm not going to be mixing my brown because I don't need it. I have to mix anyway. But if you're just using brown, I would say grab a little bit of brown, grab some white, mix them up and see what happens depending on a shade of brown. It may turn out right. It may turn out not right. If it doesn't turn out right, you can always fix it by adding a little bit of yellow or a little bit of red or a little bit of white or a little bit of black based on what it needs. I'll tell you in a second the troubleshooting for brown. So for those of us who are mixing from primaries, what you're going to need is you're going to start with white. Scoop some white on the side. We're actually trying to make this exact color. Do you see the color visible right here? So that's what we're going to make. So I put some white on the side. Now I'm going to take some yellow, mix it in, not a lot. Notice I'm not mixing in tons of yellow to make nice light yellow. Now to that color, I'm going to add some red. Again, not crazy amount. I'm aiming for this, do you see, peachy color. And now to this peachy color, I will add the tiniest little smidge of black. And this is the nice color. However, I need it darker. So I'm going to repeat all of the same again. I'm going to add a bit more yellow. I'm going to add a bit more red. And I'm going to add a bit more black. And why I suggest doing it that way and doing it little by little is because sometimes you can potentially add too much of one color and then there is no way to fix it because we're trying to aim for this fairly light color. If you overdo it with red or with yellow, you're going to need to just give up on that color and make a whole new one. So that's why it's always best to add little by little, little by little. Now, in my case, this is a pretty good color, but I think it's lacking a touch of red. Now let's talk about troubleshooting. If it looks a little greeny, because some of the pre-mixed browns, if you're using pre-mixed brown as your mixing base, or maybe you added a little bit too much yellow here and too much black, so you got a greener tone to it, to your result. If that's the case with you, it's not a very pleasant color. And for you to fix it, just take a touch of a red and mix it in. So if you have that greeny thing going on, you can fix it with red. So keep adding touch by touch until you feel like, oh, no, it's fixed. And then stop. Now, on the opposite side, if it looks a little too pink or red or even purple, because sometimes that would happen if your, let's say, brown has some of the components maybe your brown is a bit on a darker side and on a warmer side, like warm cherry kind of brown. So if that's the case, it may turn a little purple if you add some white. For you to fix it, you need to add a yellow. So if yours looks a little reddy, a little pinky, or a little purpley, take some yellow, add it in. That'll fix it for you. If it looks gray and not beige, you're gonna need to add 2 colors, red and yellow. That just means you have a lot of white and too much black. So you don't have enough of actual color. So I hope that troubleshooting scheme makes sense on how to fix it. For me, this is a perfect color. I'm happy with it. Technically, I could go a little darker here, but on the other side, I kind of like the color. I don't want to go darker. So with this color, I'm gonna go right here, and you see I'm working around my umbrella. Don't get it on your umbrella. And again, remember, sand comes in all colors, so if your color is not exactly as mine, that's okay. Just keep in mind, this one needs to be a little darker so that we can make a lighter one later and add it on top. So I colored around my umbrella, and now I'm gonna continue coloring. It's gonna be a little fast and messy kind of coloring. But guys, another thing to keep in mind here is use a fair bit of paint. And notice I'm dipping my brush in a water quite often actually, because I need to be able to spread my paint well and make sure it doesn't dry too fast, because I still need to mix in my lighter color. So do you see? And notice I'm not going all the way, to my wave. I'm going high up, but not all the way to my wave. And I'm doing this with medium brush, but if your canvas is bigger, feel free to go with a large brush. It will work really well as well. All right, so do you see I added this darker sand. Now, if you want to do your edges, it's a good time to do this right away. Feel free to bring it onto the edge. I'm only going to be doing this edge because I'm holding my painting on this side, so there's no point for me doing this edge. Now, right away, before all of this dries, I'm going to dip my brush in the water again, and to the same color I just used, I only have a little bit of it left, which is good. I'm going to add way more white, and you see what it does? It's similar color, it stays similar, but it creates this lighter shade. So do you see how different they are? This is my first shade of this color. This is with adding white. So now with this very light shade, I'm going to go right here. And yeah, go right over that line. Don't be afraid of getting on it. The line there was there just for us to know approximately where it starts. So you don't have to be avoiding. Go right over it. Color in this top with this color. And another thing you want to do is you want to take a little bit more of that color and add just a couple brush strokes going towards the bottom, just a little. You see, and it looks really messy, and it's not going to stay like that for long. Now, that's where you're going to start blending. So that's where you're going to either grab a paper towel, and if you use a paper towel, crumble it really, really well. Don't use it like a smooth spot. You don't want to use that smooth spot. You want to crumble it and use it crumbly. And I'm just going to do this. Go right over it while it's wet with a paper towel and blend it. And you will see it will pick up a little bit of this paint, a little bit of that paint. It will spread them and it will blend them. But for this, your paint has to be really, really wet. So make sure you do it as soon as you can. As soon as you laid your colors, go ahead and do that. And try not to get it on your umbrella. If it gets a little bit onto your umbrella, it's not a big deal, but try not to get too much of it on your umbrella. I'm actually even going to grab a little bit with my paper towel Maybe even blend a little bit more of that light color. All right, so this looks great. I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna be blending anything else. I'm happy with that. Now, other ways to blend is, one of the ways you could do this is, instead of paper towel, once you laid your colors, you can just wash off your large or medium brush, dry it on a paper towel, and with a clean, somewhat wet brush, but almost dry, you can go ahead and, using your brush flat, and the bigger the brush here is actually the better, you can just dab like that and blend it by dabbing. So that's another way to do it. And the last way to do it, which I don't think is the best for sand, because it's going to give you more of a cloudy texture versus a sandy texture, is you can rub it. I know a lot of people love blending with rubbing. It's a good technique, but not for sand. Sand, it's best to do it with either paper towel or a large brush, or medium brush is fine. And just while everything is still wet, with a brush, dab it. And use flat brush for this if you have. If you want to do it with brush, of course. Use flat brush because it covers larger area at a time, and that's what you want. You want to cover a large area right away. So again, I personally prefer paper towel. I find it's easier, I find it faster, and I find the look, I like it more. But yes, it will also work. All right, guys, I'm gonna give you a second. When you have it, let me know. Tell me that you're ready. And then we'll move. We'll move on to our wave. Oh no, sorry, painting mess. Dorothy, if you can't see me, refresh your page. If you have the audio but not the video, just refresh the page. All right, I see 2 people ready. I'll give you all another minute because we need you all to be ready, and then we'll move to our wavy wave. Yes, paper towel is my favorite. I love it. Hi. All right, I see lots of ready. That's good. So if we are all ready, we're gonna move to our wave. And as I mentioned earlier, we're gonna use a couple different colors here, but the first color we're gonna start with is gonna be that base teal color. So it's, I would say, fairly light. So it's like a light teal. So for that color, if you have it pre-mixed, you're free to use it. If not, you're going to need, from primaries, you're going to need white, you're going to need blue, and you're going to need yellow. So put those 3 colors on your palette, but don't mix them yet. I will show you how to mix them. Just put them on a palette for right now. All right, so I have some white here, I have some blue, I have some yellow. Now let's mix it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take some white, put it on the side. Now to that white, I'm gonna start by adding just a little bit of blue. You don't want to add too much because we're trying to mix light blue. So just add a little. If it wasn't enough, add more, and then continue adding until you arrive at the desired darkness. I wouldn't go too dark here. Lighter is better than darker. You can always make it darker later too, but it's going to be harder to make it lighter. So keep it on the light side. It doesn't have to be a baby blue. You can go darker than that, or you can have it a baby blue. Either one is fine. So just white and blue for now until you mix the right shade of light blue. If you have pre-mixed light blue, you're free to use that too. Then you don't have to even start with white. You can just start with pre-mixed very light blue. And once you have that light blue, just grab a little bit of yellow. You see a little touch and add it in, and you will see it will start turning into teal. You might need to add a couple smidges of yellow before it actually turns into color we want. But again, always go little by little. So start with a tiniest smidge of yellow, add it in, not enough, add more. Don't start with a lot because if you add too much yellow, it's going to turn into green fast. And then it's very hard to recover it once it turns green. It's easier, it's really easier to make a new color than recover it from when it turns green. So we don't want to bring it to that point. So that's why let's be careful and make sure we don't get there. So this is perfect color for me. This is exactly what I wanted. You could go a little darker than that, but a light is good too. Like overall, I made my sand a little bit lighter this time too, just a touch. So I guess it makes sense to make water just a little lighter as well. But yeah, a little darker will also work as long as it's on the lighter side overall. Okay, now in regard to blue, guys, it's actually a good question what blue you should use. We use phthalo, or I'm not sure how you pronounce it, that blue, but any colder blue will work. So just don't use ultramarine blue. Ultramarine blue is the one you don't want to use. Or any blue that has like a purple hint to it is not the blue for this. The blue that you want to use needs to be colder, so it needs to be like a hint of green kind of blue. So if you have multiple shades of blue, the one that is the greenest one, that's the one you want to use. Just avoid anything that has a purple tint to it. And once we have this, we're going to color this top part with this color fully. So I'm going to start somewhere at the top. And you see I'm doing my brush strokes on the angle. And the reason why is, and I would suggest you do the same, and the reason why is because we will later add waves in the same direction, so it's best if you start working in the same direction already. Technically, you could do it in a different direction. It's not a big deal if you start it differently, but I would suggest still go on the same angle. And again, dip your brush in the water when needed. And add pretty thick layer too, because we need to add the next color while this one is still wet. So you don't want to go just dry brush it on because it's going to dry way too fast if you do that. I run out of blue. I'm going to mix some more here. And if my second one doesn't match my first one, in this case, it is not a big deal at all. And now, once I got to our wave part right here, Now this is where you need to create the right shape for your wave. Whichever shape you want, again, of course, there is no particular shape of the wave that you have to follow. As long as you love it, that's all that matters. But yeah, you're gonna go overlap your sand. Do you see how I'm going right over my sand? I'm not trying to start my wave where my sand ends. I'm intentionally overlapping my sand. And you see, I'm not making a messy line here. I'm making a very defined line. And again, guys, if you're doing your edges, you might wanna bring this teal right to the edge of your canvas and cover your edges. If you're not doing your edges, don't worry about that. It's not a problem. Yeah, perfect. To all of that, to blue greener, to white wine. Oh, actually, you didn't say white, you just said wine. I don't know. I assumed you're having white wine. I don't know why. Tell me if I'm wrong. And to all those blues. All right, guys. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we kind of have to move to our next color fast because we cannot wait for this one to dry. So as soon as you have it, you'll be moving to your next color. And for my next color, if you still have the same blue that we just used, great. Just take a bit more of darker blue, whichever darker blue, doesn't really matter in this case. In my case, it's just primary blue. So I'm taking more of my primary blue and adding in here. And this creates a darker color, not crazy dark, but definitely darker enough for it to be visible. And with this color, I'm just going to take a little bit of it, not too much. We're not trying to create lines. We actually need to blend it somewhat. That's why we need to work on wet. So I'll take this darker color and I'll start adding waves, starting from the very top. And just use a little bit of it, use it lightly, because again, we don't want to create like weird snakes here. We need it to be blended. And the key for that is we need to add it lightly. So just a touch of paint on wet canvas and you will see it will start blending as you start adding. You see, it doesn't look like a separate snakes. It looks like a blended waves. And if it turned out like this, let me show you what not to do and how to fix it, just in case, because I find that it's important to know how to fix things in case something went really wrong. So what not to do is take too much paint on your brush and do this. This is a big no-no. Now, if that happened to you, that's okay. What you do is you wash off your brush, you dry it somewhere on a paper towel, and with a clean, wet brush, you get rid of half of that paint and you just spread it around and make it more blended. Here is how you fix that boo-boo. And now we have a blended waves. So we're going to continue adding that. Going down, you can have as many as you want. Some you can make a little bit more visible, some less visible. You can layer them, totally up to you. Just make sure you don't do that snaky one. Snaky blobby lines, you don't want those. They need to be blended snaky lines. That's why it's easier to do it on wet, because then it will naturally blend if you add it on wet. If you add it on dry, it's still doable. It's just you're gonna need to put a little bit more effort into blending it. All right, and that's all for me. So for those of you who are wondering what color that is, I just added a bit more of my primary blue to the blue that we used, to that teal that we used as a first color. I just added a bit of darker blue to that. And that's the mixture of those. All right, I'm happy with this. I don't want to be adding any more. So I'm going to wash my brush. And I will wait for you guys. So let me know when you have it, and then we'll move to the next step. But again, no rush. And also, if you're just joining us and you're wondering how you can catch up, you can actually rewind to the beginning and watch this from the beginning, even though we're still live. Yeah, I can definitely show you brush close up. So this is what I was using. I was using a medium square brush, and you see it has a point here. So if I use the top edge, this brush is actually very versatile, especially if you use a brush in not at the end of its life. Right now, this one is like super fluffy. It's not in a good shape, but I still love it. It's my favorite. But this kind of brush is the best because, let me show you. So it can give you a very thick lines if you need them. And if you use it like that, it can give you very thin lines. Do you see? Same brush, two different lines. And it also can give me everything in between. So if I use the top edge and I push a little harder, it can give me a wider line. If I push even harder, it will be even wider. If I push even harder, it would be super wide. Do you see? The wider, the more I push, the wider it gets. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys another second. All right, I see one ready. That's good. Oh, digitally nice. Show us how. Show it how it turned. How show us how it turns out once you're done. I would love to see it. Welcome. So yeah, guys, I usually use the top edge of the brush only because of how versatile it is and what it allows me doing. And technically, you could get the same results with any brush. If let's say you're using a pointy brush, you can still get the same variety of line. It just really depends on the pressure. If you use just the very tip and you don't push on your brush, you're going to get a very fine line. If you start pushing a little more, so the more of a surface of a brush meets the surface of a canvas, then it will give you a thicker line and so on. It really is all about controlling the pressure and the consistency of paint. All right, I see a few more dones. I will wait another minute and then we'll move. And I'm gonna go quickly wash my hand. All right, hand is washed. All right, good. Great, guys. Okay, if we're all ready, let's let this all dry. And while that's drying, let's move on to our umbrella. So wash off your brushes. We're gonna use medium brush again. Make sure it's nice and clean, doesn't have any. And we're gonna use white and gray. So you're going to need white and you're going to need black. That's all you need. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, oh, actually, no, I think it should be enough. So I'm gonna take my white and I'm gonna color in fully this segment here. And right away, I'm gonna color in this segment here. And if you get a little bit on the neighboring segments, no big deal. And then right away, I'm gonna take a little bit of that white, put it on the side, and then to that white, I'm gonna add just a tiny dot of black and mix it up, make fairly light gray. We're not aiming for anything dark here. Light gray is good. And then with this light gray, I'm gonna add a line right here, you see? And a line right here. And now once I have 2 lines, I'm gonna wash off my brush again, dry it on a paper towel, and now I'm gonna blend my grays. So do you see this gray into this fresh white? So with a clean brush, I'm gonna go right in between where 2 colors connect and blend it. Ideally, you don't wanna get it onto the sand. So if it gets a little, not a big deal, we can fix that. But try not to, and then I'll blend this one. Done. My gray sections are done. And again, now I'm going to give you guys some time to do this. If you got drop of blue in the sand, so there are 2 ways. A, try to wash it off. If your sand is super dry, you can just wet the corner of your cloth and wipe it off quickly before it dries, or let it dry and actually take that sand color and cover it on top. But for that, you will need to let it dry. So either is fine, depending on where you're at. You can try one or another. The first way that I said is you can just wipe it off. So if you just added like a blob or accidentally like a splatter, you dip the corner of your paper towel in water and you just wash it off quickly. If it's like a small detail, that's what I would personally do. Yeah, so for gray, it's super simple. So you cover those 2 sections with white first, then you take smidge of white, mix it with a smidge of black, make light gray, has to be light, and then put a line of that closer to the edge, and then blend it into white. So white, white, a line of gray, wash off your brush, blend, blend. You're welcome. Yes. And it's only going to get better from here, guys, which is a good news. All right, and once we have that, we're going to put the first layer of red. And here, use whichever brush seems the most appropriate for the size of your canvas. If medium brush is a little too thick, small brush will work just fine. So really up to you. If you can color it in without getting onto the white or sand, because now you have to be with red, you have to be more precise. So if you can get it done with a medium brush, do it. If not, go down size to either medium small or to small brush. And just take straight red and color those two segments with straight red. We're not mixing anything for this one. And you might notice that this red is coming out a little streaky, and that's okay because that's the reason why we're going to do it in 2 layers. Is A, for brightness, to have it super bright once we're done, and for the streakiness too. So if that's the case, don't worry about that. Very good. Yay. No, I'm not adding water. And the reason why is just because it's such a small section, I can easily spread my paint. My paint is liquid enough for me to just spread it over those sections without water. I usually add water when I work on a larger section, such as background or water, because there are just a lot more that needs to be covered there. So that's why I usually add water there. On small sections, I don't. Because it also it's a dripping hazard too. It can start dripping and you don't want it to start dripping. And at this point, we already have a lot done. So dripping can actually ruin it. When on the first stages, if it drips, oh, it drips, whatever. We can fix it. Not a big deal. All right. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes. Just give me thumbs ups when you have it. Say good to go and so on. And then we're going to move. We'll move to our wave again, I guess, because mine is dry. Yeah, by the way, let me know, guys, what is yours dry, somewhat dry, super wet, where you at? Because depending on where we at, we're either going to move to our wave or we're going to move underneath the wave and add a bit of brown here and our hearts, because this needs to be somewhat dry for us to move there. If it's still super wet, not a big deal. We can just wait a little and work here for some time and then move there. But if it's already dry, we can start working here. So just let me know what it's like for you. Dry everywhere, that's perfect. No, me too. I want to do waves. Waves are fun. Perfect. Okay, so if everyone's dry, from what I can see, everyone's saying that they are dry, which is great. All right, then we're gonna move to our waves. Perfect. Okay, so if you're ready, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna start adding some white. Now, your choice whether you want to start with small brush or medium brush. I'm gonna go with medium brush, but as you noticed, do you remember I showed you I can do fine lines with a medium brush? So that's why I'm gonna start with a medium brush. You actually don't want really thick lines here. You want somewhat thinner lines. So up to you whether you're gonna use small brush or medium brush. But I'm gonna get some white here because we're gonna need lots of white. And the first thing we're going to do is we're gonna add that first wave. So that bottom wave, do you see that bottom one? So just outline it in a way. Don't leave any space between the sand. And certain areas you can make it thicker, certain areas you can make it thinner. Yeah, don't leave any space between the white and the sand. You don't want to have blue visible here. You want to see white right away. So sand, white, then blue. Now once we have that one wave, if it's a little wet, that's okay. You can still work on it as long as it's not super. So that I'm going to start adding second wave. In the same way, we don't have it right now, so just make it up. You can make it in any shape that you want it to be. So here are my two waves. And right away, I'm going to add a third one. So again, just make up whatever shape you would like to have and go with it. So this is just the beginning of my waves. So now that I have three lines, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start using less paint on my brush. Here I use a ton of paint on my brush. So now I'm going to empty out my brush a little and I'm going to start dry brushing it on. So you can use dabs here or you can use little brush strokes. Let me show you the difference. We need to merge those lines into the water. One way is to do it is dabbing. So you start right on the wave. You see, and I'm using my brush flat. So right on a wave, not too much paint on your brush because it's going to be blobby if you have too much. Your brush needs to be almost dry. There's just a touch of paint on it. And you see, you start on the wave and then you spread it towards the second wave. You see, but not quite going to all the way to the second wave. So that's one way to do it. You see the look that it gives you. Beautiful, really good. But I'm going to do mostly the brush strokes. Brush strokes is very similar technique. You're still going to use just a touch of paint, maybe a little bit more this time, but still not a lot. And you're going to add a little brush strokes, following the direction of the wave. Again, you start right on that line, and then you lightly spread them towards the other wave. And you see, it gives you a little bit of a different texture. That's dabbing, that's brush stroking. So it's completely which one you're more comfortable with. You can do mix and match. You can do a little bit dabbing, a little bit brush stroking. I personally like the look of it a little bit more. So that's what I'm going to be doing. But again, your choice. And we're going to spread all three waves up with this. So you feel free to refill your brush whenever needed, but this time try not to use too much paint on it because we want it somewhat transparent, right? And you can layer as much as you want to. The more layers you have, the whiter it's going to look. So keep that in mind. So you can start by just spreading it a little, and then if you feel like, oh, now I want to make my edge a little bit lighter, you can go back and just add another layer of white. All right, and I'm gonna do my last wave here. You see, guys, this is what it looks like on a distance. Let me bring it close now. See, it's all about layering. There are lots and lots of layers. Certain areas you can see there are more layers, and certain brush strokes of mine are longer, some are shorter, but really it is all about the layering of those transparent brush strokes. And don't look at your painting close, because this is not meant to look at like that. If you look at it super close, it's gonna look like a mess, but just walk away from it. And you will see all that come together. Yay! Yes, good morning to those who have morning. And guys, so what I'm gonna start adding now is those smaller waves. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add them using the edge of my medium brush. Do you see them? A, and I'm gonna use way less paint there, and B, I'm gonna use the top edge of my brush. You can definitely use small brush for that too. It's actually easier to do it with a small brush. I just prefer this brush over all brushes, but you're gonna start at this wave, so the top wave, and you're gonna start at going up and adding some of them. When you see there are uneven lines, you don't want them even, you want them uneven, a bit more visible in certain spots, a bit less visible in others. You see? I'll add some of that. Not very thick. Just a little. We don't need too many of them. But it's good to have some. Just to break up that evenness there. Yes, I agree with that. All right, so I'm good with this. I don't want to be adding any more white. I'm happy with the amount. So I'm going to wash my brush. And I'll give you guys a couple minutes to do this. And again, when you have it, give me a sign and we'll move to the next step. Yay. Perfect. Thank you. Guys, we love seeing the paintings. It is so much fun for us. Oh, that's nice. I'm glad you're creating. It's good for all of us, for our mental health. Very important. All right, how is everyone doing? Are we ready to move to our sand, or do we need a couple more minutes? Good. I'm glad you found it. Yeah, and guys, again, if you're just joining us now, you can do this anytime. The video is going to stay up right here. So if you're not ready today, you can do it tomorrow or over the weekend too. Yes, ready. Perfect. As ready as you can be. Great. I'll take it. All right. So guys, now we're gonna move to dark brown. So do you see this line right here? That's gonna be done in dark brown, and those two hearts are gonna be done in dark brown. So we're gonna do both of that. If you have pre-mixed brown, feel free to use it. It doesn't have to be crazy dark as long as it's not very light. So any medium to dark brown will work just fine. If you don't have it, we'll mix it, but you're gonna need small brush this time. So don't use medium brush. So here is my small brush, and I'm gonna mix my brown. So for those who are mixing, you're gonna start with yellow, scoop some yellow on the side, then add some red. I would say about equal part, but it doesn't really matter. A little more yellow, or a little bit less yellow, and a little more red. Either one, it will be fine. But aim for equal parts. And then to that, once we mix it, we'll start adding black little by little. So we'll take a little bit of black, mix it in. You see it's starting turning into brown. It's a little bit too light at this point, so I'm gonna grab another little smidge of black, add it in, and so on. You continue adding until you arrive at the right color. So for me, this is actually the right color. I'm happy with this. I don't want to be adding anything else, so this is good color. This painting, tell me if that's the painting. Yes, I can definitely send you a link for that. All right, so that's the one. Now I'm gonna water down my paint a little bit because I find it's easier to work with a more liquid paint. And I'm gonna go right underneath here, and I'm gonna add a line. Now, something that's important about this line is, do you see it's thicker in certain areas and thinner in others? You do not want, under any circumstance, an even line. You need to have line where it's thinner in some areas, thicker in others. So again, you control that by pressure on your brush. You need a brush with a nice pointy tip. That's actually super important. In my case, this brush has a number. This is a 0, but I can do the exact same with even 6 or 8. As long as you use good brush with a pointy tip, that's all that matters. Because regardless of the number, the good brush with a pointy tip will have a really nice fine tip that you can use even on a different number brush. So anyway, let's do it. So do you see I'm pushing more in some areas to make that line thicker, and I'm pushing less in others to make it thinner. And of course, refill as needed. Refill the paint whenever you need it. Done. So that's the one. Notice here and here, we're not gonna add that color. There's gonna be different color there. This one is only going on as sand. And after that, I'm gonna move to hearts. And guys, I see your messages. I will definitely send you all a link. I'm not gonna be able to email it to you, but I will send it, I will just post it in chat here. So you will see it in chat in a second. So let's do our hearts here. These 2 hearts, there are 2 ways you can do it. If you are good with painting hearts and hearts come naturally to you and you're not afraid to mess it up, what you could do is, so those hearts are done with dabs. They're like, they're a combination of a tiny, tiny little dabs that make a heart shape. So they look like a rough sand. That's just someone took a finger and did a heart. So they need to have this rough. Now, I am not that good with hearts. I wouldn't be able to do it without an outline. So option 1, you grab a pencil and you sketch your hearts first. And then you take the small brush and you dab that outline to create that rougher look, but still very thin. Option 2, if you are somewhat okay with making hearts, but not like the greatest, so you're okay to sketch them, but you don't really need pencil because you are confident that you're not going to mess it up too bad, you can go with paint. and just with the tip of your brush, you can sketch them first and then dab them over that already painted line. So either with pencil or with paint, but I highly recommend that you sketch them first. So that's what I'm gonna do. Do you see very lightly? I sketched one heart. I sketched second heart. And again, you can do this with pencil if needed, but if not, this will work. And only once you have that sketch, now you can go with just the top edge of your brush and you can dab them. So they just look a little bit not so smooth, I would say. All right, so here are my two hearts, and you see they look like a rough sand because they're not so straight and linear. So that's it for me for brown. I'm gonna wash off my brush now. I'm not gonna be using this color anymore. So feel free to do the same whenever you're ready. If you need to take a bit more time, go for it, that's okay. If you want to, for sure. So to answer your question, if you can use red to create the depth in the hearts, absolutely. If that's what you want to do, go for it. Your call. Whatever you want to do, whatever wherever your imagination takes you here, yes, go there. For those of you guys who are wondering about this painting on a background in chat, this one is actually not a YouTube tutorial. It is on our website, but I can definitely send you a link. I'll send you a link in a second in a group here. Sorry, not in a group, in a chat. I meant to say group chat, and I got rid of the word chat, but love the word group. And I meant to do it the opposite. You know what, guys? I just noticed that we actually didn't put that one on a website, that painting that you're asking about on the background. We should, because we have it, and we will do that tonight. We will add it to our website tonight. We forgot. Yes, but I can send you a link to where we usually have all the recordings, and I promise you we will add it very shortly. Sorry. So, this is the link to where we usually have all our recordings from previous events that were hosted through Zoom. The events that we did through YouTube stay on YouTube, so that's where you can find them. But that particular one was a Zoom event, but I don't see a recording for it, so which means we just forgot to edit. But I will edit, I promise. We will edit. So if you check tonight or tomorrow morning, it should be there. No, we don't do the same painting twice. We want to keep it fresh. Oh, yay! I'm glad you guys like the hearts. All right, if everyone is happy with their hearts and we're all good to move, so let's add a second layer on red now. It's the time for it. So I'm gonna grab my medium brush and I'm gonna grab straight red again, and I'll just add second layer. And you will notice it will make it more even and brighter. So do you see I added second layer? Now, I'm gonna take, I need to add that darkness. Do you see there's a bit of darkness here? So that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna take some of that red. I'll put it on the side. And to that, I'm gonna add a smidge of black and mix it up. So you're not trying to make it super black. You're trying to make it like a wine color or burgundy color. And then with this color, we're gonna do something very similar to what we did with white and gray. So I'm gonna put it right here. And I'm gonna put a line of that right here. And once I have that, I'm gonna wash off my brush, dry it on a paper towel, and I'm gonna go ahead and blend it. All right, so this is what it looks like. I'm gonna give you guys a couple of minutes again, and then we'll move to our final color. Actually, we still need to add a white around our hearts. That's gonna be our final thing, but final color is gonna be this darker blue. So we're gonna move on to that color and we'll add a bit more depth to our waves. Oh, yay. I'm glad you like it. Christine, you can actually, if you were really set to start now, that you can just the beginning and start watching from the beginning. You don't have to wait until we're done. All right, guys. Okay. I see some thumbs ups, which is great. So let's move to our dark blue. I'm going to be using small brush here, and there's actually a technique that we're going to be doing right now. We're going to be sort of washing it. Let me show you. So what you're going to need water. Make sure you have that. You're going to need blue and black. So I'm going to take my primary blue, put it on the side, and then I'm going to add just a little bit of black to it. We're not trying to make it almost black. We're just trying to make it a little darker and a little dimmer. And the best way to describe this finished color, I know it looks almost black on my camera, but it's not. It really is like a dark jeans color. If you have a dark jeans, that's the color right here. What are we gonna do now? Yes, I'm gonna water down this paint actually. This is very important too because you need to have it a bit more transparent. So I'm gonna take some water, I'm gonna add into it. You know, with watered down paint, that's jeans color. I'm gonna go underneath this first wave, and you're not gonna add it everywhere. It's pretty much the same as here. You need to add it in more visible in some spots, less visible in others, and so on. Do you see? Not even line. That's what you do. You add that not very even line. And as soon as you did it, you wash your brush, and with a clean wet brush, you don't dry it. With a clean wet brush, you go here and you blend this line. You see, you wash it into the wave. It doesn't look so linear anymore. And you might need to refill your brush with actual water a couple times so it's a bit more blended. You just blend it with water. Beautiful, right? And then we're gonna do the exact same thing with the other wave as well. So we do one wave, blend, then second wave, refill your brush, add it, and blend it. Now to answer your question, when will the next Zoom session happen and how do you get to know about it? You can see the schedule on our website. I'll send you the link. So if you click here, you will see everything that we have scheduled for the next month. We usually schedule month to month and a half in advance. The same for Zoom events and for free YouTube events. We know the schedule always about month to month and a half in advance. So all Zoom events are posted on this link, that one that I'm going to send you right now. All right, so I sent it in chat, so you can see all those Zoom events there. They indicate the time, but also they all come with recordings too. So let's say you love one of them, but you can't make the exact time because you live in a different time zone or you already have plans. If you get your ticket to that Zoom event, we will send you a link to the recording as soon as Zoom event is actually passed. So you can watch a recording anytime. It never expires. And for YouTube events, I'm going to send you in a second a link for that too. We have the calendar for those on Facebook. But I'll send you guys in a second the link where you can see that as well. So let me add the second wave first. So again, uneven, uneven. And once it's added, right away, I wash my brush. And with a clean, slightly wet brush, I go back and I start blending. All right, and now it's blended. We're still gonna add a bit of that up, and we're gonna add a couple spots here. We're not done with it, but the blending has to come first. So I'll give you guys a second to do that. All right, and here's the link where you can see all the schedule for our upcoming YouTube live events, and actually all of our events. You can see schedule for Zoom events and live free YouTube live events right here on that link. It will bring you right to events section on our Facebook. So you'll see everything that we have in for like another month. So if there's anything that catches your attention, just check out details, see what day and what time it is, and on which platform. All right, guys, so now I'm gonna water down the same paint a little bit more. And I'm gonna start, because I kind of want it a little more transparent at this point. I don't want it as dark to see. The more water I add, the more transparent it gets. And now I'm gonna start adding waves going up. So do you see those small lines right here? Make sure your paint is really liquid, and make sure your paint is really somewhat transparent for that and flowy. You can't really do this with a thick paint. You need to have it more liquid. You see, just adds another dimension. And don't overdo this. We're not trying to have a lot of dark lines here. And also, if there turned out that, let's say you got a line that you don't like, wash off your brush and blend it in. So the same way that we did with those waves here, you can also use the same technique. And whatever you feel like looks too harsh or maybe out of place, you can just blend it. Yay, I'm glad. I'm so glad. And you're very welcome. All right, and another thing I'm gonna add with the same brush and the same paint, and again, it needs to be liquid and transparent, is we're gonna add a couple dots right here. So do you see those small lines right here that will make it look more like a foam? So I will start adding them. You see, very transparent, just like a small dots or brush strokes or lines closer to that dark section, just to break up the evenness of that wave. But guys, it's very important that you use very transparent paint. So if your paint is not getting as transparent as mine, add a little bit of white. Just make it lighter. Lighter is okay too. Doesn't have to be that dark. The goal is not to have the same intensity darkness. That needs to be darker. And then guys, after this, the last thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna take some white on our small brush again, and we're gonna go onto our hearts, and we will dab a little bit of white with the same very, very little dabs around, and in a certain spots you can also dab inside too. You don't have to dab everywhere, outside and inside. In my case, majority of it is outside, but some of it is on the inside too. So a few spots on the outside, a few spots on inside is good. And try to keep your heart still fairly thin, the line itself, so just very lightly. And if you're free to overlap your existing brown, it doesn't have to be outside of your brown. I actually, personally, I'm overlapping my brown so it doesn't get too thick, because I know that if I don't overlap my brown, this heart is gonna get very thick very fast. All right, so here is white on my hearts. And the last thing actually that I will encourage you to do here before we sign our names is I would actually encourage you to add even one more line. Now that this is dry, to even lighten up this again. Just the actual line that is the wave line. So I would actually go over this again with a little bit more white. Do you see? It makes it lighter because now our first layer is dry. So our white is actually going to get super, super bright if we go over it again. So that's what I would recommend, that you go over those wave, just the actual line. You see how much brighter it became? That's what you want. You want it super, super bright. Only if you want to. I mean, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. Probably already looks really good, so. right, guys, and after that, you just have to sign it. So choose a good spot and put your name or your initials or your signature, anything that you would prefer. And again, there are links here. There's link, if you scroll a bit higher up, there's a link to where you can see all our upcoming schedule. It's Facebook link to all Facebook events. You'll see what we have coming up for the next month or month and a half. Do that. And if you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to do that, because if you do, YouTube will notify you every time when we go live. So whenever we go live, you'll get notification that we are live now. So you can choose to join, or you can choose to just see what's up and see if you want to paint it later. That's okay too, because we keep all our videos, so you can do it anytime if the particular timing that we host an event doesn't work for you. And guys, if you enjoyed it, and you want to say thank you by tipping me, I would never say no to that. It is not an obligation. You don't have to. We're happy to be here. I'm happy to teach this event. But if that's your way of saying thank you, you can. I will send you a link here in chat in a second to a PayPal. It's like a PayPal link. So using that PayPal link, you can send your tips if you prefer to do that. Of course, no pressure. All right, I sent the link in chat. Yay, you're welcome. Thanks for joining me, guys. If you want to if you want to share your paintings with us, take a photo and you can post them on our Facebook, either anywhere really, under any comment, on any post, or if you would like to post them on event page made specifically for this event, you can do that too, because then everyone who participated in this particular event would be able to go there and see how everyone's paintings turned out. So that's definitely a good place to post your result. I'll send you all links too, so you don't have to go browsing on Facebook trying to find it. All right, I just sent you a link to where you can post your results. It says post your results here, and I'm going to make a post there in a second as soon as we're done, with just a link for anyone who potentially missed this event and asking you to post your photos. So you can post them all in comments there. That way everyone who participated can go there and see how they all turned out. And that just is nice, because it feels like we're actually in the same room doing together, so we can see how everyone's turned out. But no pressure. If that's not your thing and you'd rather keep it private, that's totally fine. You don't have to. Yay. All right. You're welcome, guys. Now, does anyone have questions before I go? Ask away. Anything that you want to know. Yeah, blending is hard. I agree. That's okay. It comes with experience. The more you do it, the easier it gets. It's all about that figuring it out. But once you get it, once you get it right, once your hand memorizes how to do it, it gets easier. Yeah, just experience. But yes, I feel you. It's tricky. All right, if no one has questions, I'm going to let you guys finish in peace. Thanks for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you again. Bye, everyone.